Welcome to the Mick, a Luke, and a Mike. Hosted by four-time Emmy-nominated producer Frank Mace and retired New York City firefighter, 9/11 first responder, and Vietnam vet, Billy O'Connor.
Today's guest,
9-time Emmy Award-winning sound mixer, David Fluhr.
Is your dog bite?
Oh, shit.
You said your dog did not bite.
Oh, shit. My brother.
My brother Frankie, how are you, pal? Look
Good.
at you today. You're all blued up and white. I like it, right?
You're blued up too.
Yeah,
Aren't you? That's blue.
you get the memo?
That's blue. You're blue and green.
Yeah, everybody says, you a Jet fan? I said, somebody handed me the hat for nothing. I said, I'd wear anything if they put it, give me for nothing. Give me a freebie.
Hey, before we start talking, our guest today is David Fluhr. Terrific sound mixer. He's been nominated for 38 Emmys. He's got fucking credits. All of these are his credits.
Wow.
credits up the
Looks
wazoo.
like War and Peace. Nice.
Really.
I
So
got it.
David will be joining us shortly.
I got to find out what exactly the profession involves. I mean, you already know this,
But I really don't know how he mixes a show. I mean, he's got a fucking board. It's like 36 channels, and they're all moving stuff. And
it'd be kind of cool. Yeah, well, fascinating to find out what it's all about.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. Have you ever lied to your wife?
I lied the day I put my hands up. I promised to love, honor, and obey. That was a lie from the jump.
But seriously.
My wife, she said, now that you're married, my first wife, she said, now that you're married, you got to stop drinking. You got to stop gambling. You got to stop running around with women. I said, what do you, I can't change the habits of a lifetime over some whim of yours. What do you expect me to do here?
Derek, have you ever lied to Yesenia?
Never.
You never lied
Never.
to Yesenia?
Never.
So when she put on a dress that you said was not flattering, she says,
It's a beautiful dress.
do you think? Well, do you think I'm? Do you think I'm gaining weight?
What, you?
No, ask.
No, your wife.
Yesenia's asking. Do you think I'm gaining weight?
Never. No, absolutely not. You
not
look
a pound.
I like the ones like, does my ass look fat in this? Oh, I just lost 20 pounds. I think I just found it. Yeah.
Look at Billy though. He's all
He's
fit.
svelte.
Yeah.
It's felt.
Yeah. Look at you.
I'm telling you, I'm in my prime. You fucking guys know what
You are in your prime.
Well,
my prime.
Tell us about your prime sailing
Jesus.
trip.
I still like
And did you lie to your wife on that sailing trip?
Oh, now we're getting to brass tacks.
Did I lie on the sailing trip? I tell her we're all safe, everything's gonna be cool. You gotta maintain an air of calm, No, what happened was we're going out to Santa Cruz. It's about a 6 or 7 hour sail from where I got my boat, and I never anchored before. I mean, I've anchored with a bunch of other firemen and stuff, but I was never in charge of the boat, the captain, so to speak. And
Wait a second.
I'm the captain.
How long have you had this boat?
A couple of years.
And you never captained?
I never anchored.
Oh, you never anchored.
I mean, we have tied up to docks all over the place, but I never went to an island.
And anchoring means you have to
drop an anchor.
Okay.
Or in your case, your wallet. That'd be heavy enough to hold you. But yeah, so we're going to this. The idea is I'm going out with this guy who's a good sailor, right? This is the guy who works on my boat. He helps me out all the time. The guy's a terrific guy. And really knows his shit. So he says,
well,
yeah.
why was he out with you then?
Well, the thing is, his wife died not too long ago. And he wants to go out cruising again, but he doesn't, it's kind of hairy to go alone, unless you really got balls or you're out of your mind, to be out in the sea alone all the time. And so he was going to go out because it was his first time back on the water without his wife, to go out to the island. We get about
a mercy mission.
Kind of, yeah. We get about halfway out there and his engine goes. Right? I'm sailing, he's sailing, but he's got his engine on. His engine goes. He has engine, but he knows his shit. So he's going downstairs to work on the engine. But he's drifting. I'm going around. By the time he realizes that this engine ain't coming back, it's about 5:30. the anchorage that we got to go to is still about 3 miles away, which is going to take me close to an hour, 3 miles, because I'm going 5 knots or 6 knots. So anyway, he's out. He's got to get towed back to shore. So now I got to go into this anchorage. I never really anchored before, but I said, I'll figure it out. I anchor, blah, blah, blah. Everything's fine. I check the anchor. I'm good. About 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm in bed. Of course, I'm balls ass naked, which is the way I sleep, right? 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, God.
Bam! I hear bam!
I
like how he looks at me.
Please.
Paul's there thinking, he goes, oh, right away to look. Oh. You just told me how it looks felt.
Oh, that,
we could have left that part of the story out.
Jenny's a lucky
No,
woman.
because what happens is when I come out, this guy bangs into my boat. I mean, I hear this boom. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. Like, what the? Jump out, jump up there. And it's a guy and his wife, and they're trying to push the boat off, right? Because they banged into it.
Were you still balls ass naked?
Yeah! Oh, yeah! I'm giving her the full Monty. I mean, I got balls out. And they're not pretty. This is the baggy balls that a 76-year-old man should have. And so it's like, oh, shit, man. But, it's like nobody's hurt. Cool. Like, let me get a pair of pants on. I run down, I grab a bathing suit or whatever the hell's there. I come back up. And now he's trying to push the boat. It's jammed into my beam, the back of my boat.
Whoa.
And he's trying to push it off, and he's jumping up and down like an idiot. I reach down to try and pop it up a little bit, giving it some help, some weight, bouncing myself. And I get my finger caught between 2 pieces of metal, which is stupid. But it almost takes my finger off. Now I'm bleeding like a stuck pig. I'm in my bathing suit. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. You can't see shit. It's pitch black. Try to grab a flashlight. Anyway, make a long story short, we get the thing off, get the boat off. Turns out, in this anchorage, boats are swinging so much from so much current and wind that every 2 or 3 hours, the road of his rope, which is the diameter, is going to come in and smack me. So I had to stay up all night pushing his boat away. So that's the first night.
Whoa.
And then I'm bleeding like a stuff pig. Thank God my wife's an RN. And she puts all kinds of stories. She says, you need stitches. I said, I know, but that's great. I'm 7 hours from the mainland. We got no phone. How am I going to get stitches? Well, she doctored me up anyway. Saved my finger.
Have any glue?
Huh?
Super glued it.
That's exactly what super glue was for initially. Did you know that?
Yes, that's
Yeah,
why I
you did
said
in the
it.
military. Yeah,
What- That's why I said it.
very good. Very good.
Thank you. I'm glad you approve.
He's smart, this guy.
Yeah.
I'm smart. I'm smart.
I'm not dumb like
I'm not
everybody
dumb.
says.
That's a Godfather reference for people who haven't been following 175 podcasts thus far.
Thus far. Or somebody who's anyway, it was a misadventure to say, but on the way out there, the wind kicked up. It was usually 15 to 20 mile knots. It got up to like 35. And my wife wanted to be on the wheel. So she's on the steer. And I look over and I swear to God, her face, it looked like her mouth. She's just glued. And I start laughing. I'm saying, come on. I said, pull in the main a little bit. Well, let's heel it more. Let's bury the rail. Stop with you crazy. I just want to get over. So anyway, it was a good adventure.
What were the wave? What's the wave height? 7,
Probably
8?
3 to 6.
Oh, okay.
Not bad.
Okay.
But you know what it is with a sailboat? You can make it heel.
Yeah.
If you make it heel, now
No,
you
tell us. Yeah, give us a lesson.
give us the skin.
Tell it to me because
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Well, what happens when you're sailing? You're tricking the wind into going where you want to go.
Correct.
So you're trying to get to a certain destination, but to get to that destination, sometimes it's faster to go out of your way because the wind is stronger there, and you'll tack, to get to that destination. So if you want to go faster, you can pull in your main and catch your sail just right with your jib, which is the front sail, to get into a situation where the boat actually turns towards the water. Like somebody skiing. You ever see somebody coming down a hill skiing? When they're coming fast and they're on the heels or they're on the sides of the skis. They're not
The boat's
really on
leaning.
the ski. Yeah.
He knows what you're talking about. He's just.
Look at him.
I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Anyway,
It's like when you see the sailboats and they're leaning.
they're leaning. They call it heeling.
Yeah.
But when that happens, you got to jump to the other side of the rail because you almost got the rail buried into the ocean.
Yeah.
So if you're not a sailor, it's scary. If you're a sailor, it's fun. That's what you're trying to do. But if you never did it before, it's like you think you're sinking. Anyway, make a long story short, she's back alive. She thinks she's Magellan. Everybody's happy. We survived our first trip out there. But yeah, so it was fun. It was good. I mean, but
So
outside of my finger
how much younger do you feel?
with the boat.
Yeah, truthfully. Because I know it has to have an effect.
Yeah, it does because you're working all the time
Yeah.
with the boat. But with a boat, you always got something to do. And I'm not mechanical. Like,
Well, you're not like me.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not like
yeah.
Frank. Frank,
The
you know,
fucking two least mechanical people in the world.
you know.
I have to ask my wife, what's a Phillips head screwdriver? What's a flathead?
Yeah, the other guy when they tell you go get the left-handed monkey wrench, and I really go look for it. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know.
But like I said to my wife, there are a lot of people that know what a flathead screwdriver is and a Phillips head. Not that many people can afford a house in Pebble Beach, so
Oh, shit.
Oh.
Flexing.
Hey, the
Whoa.
color
That's-
flags,
you know,
that's a man.
that's
That's a
what I-
man. Hey.
that's what I said to her. I said to her once, and I just ducked, and I never said it to her again.
Yeah.
Oh.
You want a mechanic? Hire a fucking
You want a mechanic?
Yeah.
Fire
You
mechanic.
didn't-
Hi,
you didn't marry me.
marry a mechanic.
Yeah, you didn't marry me to be a mechanic. Yeah, I know.
There's a famous story about that. I wish I could remember who said what to what, but it was a famous old actor, and he was diddling around with a showgirl or something, and he offered her 2 tickets, and she said, "I don't need tickets. I need bread." She said, "For bread, you marry a baker. you marry me, a Barrymore. For me, you get tickets."
John Barrymore.
Yeah.
Maybe you get tickets.
All right, so let's get David Fluhr on the line because
Okay.
we've taken up enough of these fine people's times.
Hopefully.
Hopefully,
Hopefully we're taking up some of your time.
yeah, can you fix your hat? Fix your
Fix
head.
my hat or my head? Or
We'll fix
turn
it.
my head
We'll fix
around?
it.
Yeah.
Fix it while we're working on
What are we
getting-
doing here?
All
We
right,
good?
let's get
David.
Emmy Award-winning sound mixer David Fluhr on the line.
Hello?
David,
Hello.
we can't hear. Yes, we can hear
Yeah,
you.
we can hear.
Okay, yeah, I had to
Now we hear him. Looking good.
testing 1, 2, 3. Testing.
Yeah,
You
be
did
great.
it.
How you doing, my friend?
It's like I knew a Russian sound guy and a check 1, 2. Sorry.
Check 1, 2.
What's it been? 25 years since we talked? 30?
Really?
At least, yeah, maybe 30 years. I mean, 1990 or so is when I went off to Larson Sound. So that
Well,
but I've been following you along, and this is fantastic. Thank you so much for the invitation.
you bet. That's my partner, Billy O'Connor,
Pleasure to know you,
Okay.
David.
and that's
Pleasure.
Nice to meet you.
my other partner, Derek Harris.
Hello.
Hey, Derek.
How you doing?
So, David,
I didn't see you, but I heard you, and I saw you on the email.
Yeah, I don't know why you didn't see me.
what do you? Can he see you yet?
No,
Okay.
You're not missing nothing.
Will he be able to?
I don't think so.
Look, I'm a sound guy. I can hear you.
Yeah. Well, we know we'll get good sound on this for sure. For sure.
Yeah, you sound good.
How you doing? The Descendants, Moana, Frozen, Zootopia,
Yeah.
Untouchables, Head of the Class. Wow. What the fuck is it you do?
I hope other people make a lot of money.
But you're a sound mixer.
Yes, I'm
You-
what they call a re-recording mixer, as opposed to like a production mixer who's on the set, who works with a crew with the boom mics and records the live action. God, I look like a ghost. I re-record and do the final mixes that go on either on TV or feature films or Disney Plus or streaming or whatever. So I'm the last link before people see things usually, unless it's live.
how do you learn to handle all of the? What do you have? 36 channels or something? How big's your mixing panel
Well,
now?
for an example, I'm getting ready to do Moana 2 right now, which is going to be coming out Thanksgiving, and I've been doing all of the Disney animated features since, gosh, yesterday was my 20-year at Disney, which is crazy. And so our films, it's probably upwards of almost 2,500 channels of audio. The sound effects themselves are hugely wide, and music can be like on Encanto, we had 187 channels just for the score, and another 200 or so for the songs, including all the vocals and the background vocals and all the instrument stems and stuff. So it can get fairly wide for a feature. On the streaming side, there's budget consideration and time consideration, so things get compressed, and we have to plan things so that we can do things as best we can in the time that we're allotted. So you won't see that kind of workflow in smaller projects.
Can you do me a favor, David? Your audio is sort of your video is sort
Is
of
it gated?
No, it's sort of bouncing.
Yeah. Let me see.
You're not your audio, your video.
If you're on a laptop, you could be
just
shaking your
stop
desk.
shaking the desk.
Yeah. It's probably
Now it's good.
All right. I've been doing this, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm leaning. First of all, I just want to say that thank you so much for the invitation. I took a look at your website, and I watched some of the podcasts and some of the people you've interviewed, and I feel very humbled and honored to be a part of it. You've talked to a lot of very, very interesting and high-profile people. I'm not sure I fit in there, but I'm happy to share my experience with what I've been doing to help reach people through stories. It's basically been my motivation since you've known me. And the other part of it is your Rod Carew interview. I just wanted to say I got wrapped up in that because I'm from Long Island. I grew up just outside Queens. And I was relating to a lot of the stories that you were all talking about, and in relation to the Yankees. And I was a Mets fan, unfortunately. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know that it really struck a chord with me, the stuff you guys are doing, and it's super fun.
Well, thanks very much for the compliment, David. That's kind of you, and we're delighted to have you on, man. Just delighted. You have to excuse me because I'm more of a layman. I'm not really in the business. So let me get this clear. I mean, you're the last gate before the public gets the sound of a thing. So that covers all the sounds. If somebody drops a hammer on the stage, you got to get that, the music, everything. It's not just the music, the dialogue. It's every bit of sound that's on that.
Right. So here's an overall view. Just using one of our movies as an example. There's live action, and then there's animation, and there's a couple other categories. Each one has a slightly different workflow, but for me, it doesn't matter. If in a live action film, they spend 9 months shooting on a set, and they get all the dailies, and they put everything together, and they have an editor who's working with the director to make the picture cut. Sound then comes in, post-production sound, which is what I am, comes into play, where we help design the final sound that's going to be in the film. So there's a whole slew of people that I work with that prepare the tracks and design the tracks to a spec that we work very closely together. So to use an example, for an animated film, like you can see Bolt in the background there, and Frozen, and a bunch of films that I've worked on, including the current one, it takes about 3 to 5 years to make an animated film. And they start out with storyboards and just rough recordings. So in a dialogue room, the actors won't really be involved yet. They'll just use the crew, some of us, to help get the words, the script going, and they will do rough animation, what we call storyboards, to help put together the story, and then they can cut it and paste it and move things around much easier than in the live action world, where if you need a new scene, you've got to go reshoot it. But in animation, you can just drop it out and draw new stuff. And so all of this process takes such a while when you get down to, okay, now we've got a story. Now the animators are starting to do the final coloring and work. The supervising sound editor will come in with his or her crew and design the sound effects and the backgrounds and the vehicles and explosions or doors or environments. All of that stuff is a whole crew. The music department will work with the composer or composers, and then there's songwriters that all play together and have to work together to work with the directors to then work towards a schedule that when I come on, we've got the music recorded, we've got the sound effects prepared, we've got the actual dialogue recorded from the actors, and then I get that and I work with a partner, my partner Gabe Guy, who I met at Skywalker in 1999-2000, and brought him with me to Todd.io Studios, where I was doing features, and Gabe now is my sound effects mixing partner. So in the features, we have two of us that mix. He handles the sound effects, and I handle the dialogue and music. And we work for about 40 days or so to create the final mix, deciding where everything's going to go in the sound field, using Dolby Atmos as a 3D sonic imaging experience, and, creating a point of view for storytelling. And that's what it's all about. All the tracks, all the stuff, it doesn't really matter how much you have, it's how you use it. It's really true, because anything that doesn't serve the story shouldn't be in the movie. And Frank, you know this from when we were working together back in the sitcom days. My path came, I guess, 44 years now. It's hard to even say. From, beginnings where I was an assistant and learning from the pros around me. And I learned about how to handle dialogue. My background up until then had been music. I went to music school. I was a composer. And I was doing recording in upstate New York, and working in a degree towards electronic music composition, not knowing I was going to be doing sound for picture. So I found myself in 1980 needing to really kind of step up. And I had several mentors along the way. My cousin Walter Miller, who was a famous TV director, did a lot of live awards shows and music-driven shows like the Grammys, and just very well known. He's passed away now several years, but he brought me out here and introduced me to a place called Compact Video, where I was hired to be a runner and got everybody their coffee for a year and a half. But I learned from all these mentors about how dialogue and sound effects and music work together in picture. So we started out in sitcoms, I did documentaries, and then I found myself doing mostly music-based projects, because the 80s we had MTV, and this place, Compact Video, Frank, you were there with me. We were the only place in pretty much the world that could sync up a 2-track wild song to a video that had already been cut and edited at a different speed and all that. So we were working with everybody, and I met a whole lot of people and started my music and mixing career. And I've got tons of stories I can go into, might be interesting. But I wanted my long-term goal to be sound for movies. So I did sitcoms, I learned about dialogue, I did music specials. I was invited in 1990 to Larson Sound by Rick Larson, who's a dear friend, who gave me the opportunity to work with movies for television. That's what they did at Larson Sound primarily. So there's all these pockets of specialties for sound for picture. And my long-term goal, and I took a long time to get there because I had pretty early success in 10 years at Compact Video, working on all these music and variety shows and specials, and had a pretty good niche going, but wanted to do more. So I started over, went to Larson Sound, and worked with now a 3-person crew. I did dialogue only, and I had a music mixer and a sound effects mixer. Back in the day there, we had no automation. We didn't have workstations, digital workstations, and all the things we have now to help us be more accurate and faster. So we would do 30 or so movies for television a year, did a couple of small movies, like for Guillermo del Toro. We did his first movie here in the United States, and got involved. One of the other things that was happening was I was being mentored by and paying attention to people that really were pros and had the advantage of being able to learn a lot. And one of those people was Carol Pratt, who was one of the what we call laugh guys. And there were several of them. That's a whole other category of discussion that might be fun to touch on for how the soundtracks were prepared for comedies. And I was doing, Perfect Strangers and Head of the Class and Murphy Brown and, all of these big hits that also had live audience. Carol was with me all the time. He got heavily involved in the academies and stuff. And at one time we were doing Dolly Parton special. It was 2:30 in the morning. Those were 36-hour days. When you're young, you can do that stuff. And he turned to me, sat next to me, and he said, you got to give back to this business. You got to give back to the industry, to the young people coming up. This business is very good to us. We make a good living, and giving back is really important. Join the academies, join the Cinema Audio Society, which is a group like a guild for mixers. We have sound editor guilds, and we have, the Actors Guild and all that, and the Cinema Audio Society. So I did all that and got involved. And as I got through Larson Sound and I was governor of the TV Academy Sound Branch, it really made an impression on me about, doing lectures and demonstrations and helping young people come up while I was working. It's kind of a big responsibility, but very satisfying. And by meeting people along the way, I was invited to Todd A.O. Studios to do film sound, which was, so basically had to start over. And at that time, if you did TV, you weren't really welcome in the film world because, especially in sound, because it was considered not as much of a high-end craft, and wrongly so, because now everybody's doing both. But so anyway, the long-term story is I got involved in Todd A.O., started my career over, started doing live action movies, some animation stuff, not a lot, but mostly live action, and working with different crews and teams. And I was basically the leader of the teams at this point. We call what I do is the gaffing mixer, is the lead mixer. I call it the one who makes the most mistakes, because that's what happens. But when in about 2004, I got invited to Disney to work on one of their stages, and then I met the folks at Disney Animation, and they asked me if I would want to do one of their films, and I was like, oh, this is an iconic, absolutely. And so that's now where I am full time, and so the same processes are exactly the same as they were years ago, except the tools are much improved.
David, how do you have to switch your mixing capabilities per director? I mean,
great question. I mean, our
who are some of the directors you worked with, and how does their work style change?
Yeah, well, one of my favorite longtime directors, John Lee Hancock. We did a movie back in the 90s called The Rookie, the baseball movie, with Dennis Quaid, and that was my introduction to John Lee, who was a writer. I forget what he got his nomination for Oscar for writing, but he did The Blind Side, and we did every movie since that time. And for me, I mean, I worked with Billy Friedkin, I've worked with Angelica Houston, I did her movies, and I've got some cool stories from her, and lots and lots of different people, and the common thread is this is their movie. It doesn't say a movie by David Fluhr, it says a movie by whomever you're working with. And one thing that's been very satisfying for me, especially with folks like John Lee, is they allow the horses to run the race. In other words, we get hired not because we're button pushers or we call it painting by numbers, and you just do a mix on a scene that's kind of generic, and okay, you're outside, so you need birds, and everything is custom made and has to do with the story. And being able to hear the dialogue when you need to, and there's a lot of technical expertise that goes into it in terms of matching lines from different performances, working with music. It's all skill set that you develop over time using your ears. And John Lee allowed me and my team to run the rate. In other words, I would mix. The films are broken down into reels, into segments of maybe 15 to 20 minutes. Might be 5 or 6 reels. And I would go through and mix the reel and with my team and come up with a point of view that how it should go. This is after being involved with, pre-production and listening to the story and reading the script and sort of, paying attention to a lot of detail, but also offering a point of view and using sound to enhance the story, create tension. And it doesn't mean you just pile stuff on all the time. It's sometimes what you take out makes a bigger difference, So we're making those decisions all the time. And you work with a director that allows you to do that, that's very satisfying. And there's other directors that I've worked with who are very micromanaging. In other words, they'll sit right next to you for every frame and demand you raise or lower things by a quarter of, the quarter BD.
Let me jump in because that part answers a question that I think it was Derek asked me a couple of weeks ago. And he asked me, why is the background so loud in some of these movies? Do you recall that, Derek?
Yeah. I think the biggest question for me was, let me see if I can get my camera to work. No, still not working.
I'd rather look at you than me, so try to,
Basically, some movies have really bad sound, and the levels. So, in other words, like when the main character is speaking, there's other background noise that is almost the same level as the main character, and it's very difficult to understand what's happening in the movie.
And that's probably an indication of a situation that the sound editor was not allowed to do what he was trained to do.
Well, that's totally possible and hard to digest unless you talk to people like what's exactly going on. There's a very close friend of mine who's an Oscar winner mixer who mixes sorry, but Abby is going to join.
Hello there.
Sorry. she's my little rescue, and I'm sorry about this, but this is what happens. Ever since COVID and working from home, she thinks it's okay to be. Okay. So
right.
Might have to deal with her a little bit.
Good looking dog.
Yeah, she's a beauty. But thinks she owns everything. No. Stop. Just wait. Sorry. What was I saying? I was saying that
levels, mixing
we
levels.
were talking about levels, right? And so this very close friend of mine works with a director whose concept is we don't need to hear all the dialogue. That's his point of view. It's not necessary to hear everything that the actor is saying, and it's a design, and it's for those of us in the movies going to see stuff like that, especially when you're at home and you have to raise and lower the volume in order to hear what they're saying, and then all of a sudden you get blasted out. There are ways, there are techniques and specs to follow so that those things don't happen. But if it's a creative choice and the director is telling you, I don't care what he says, that's creative choice.
And it's very different than television, where
right.
The choice is, I don't give a shit about what's going on in the background. I want to hear the dialogue.
Right. So you've got tools now that we've never had before to be able to eliminate. If you're recording dialogue at the beach, what do you think you're going to have in the microphone? A lot of is waves, and those things can be really can crush the dialogue. And so you have a few options now that we didn't have before. We always had what we call ADR, which is automated dialogue replacement. So the actor would come in after the fact and watch themselves on a big screen. And sorry, I'm bouncing the camera again. But they would replace the dialogue with dialogue recorded on a stage, and it all has to be sunk up and made to sound like it was in the original environment, which is another challenge as a dialogue mixer. And you need a really good ADR mixer who knows how to place the mic and how to get the performance from the actor. Most actors honestly hate ADR, and directors hate ADR. And so a lot of times they would rather live with noise. And I'm sort of this school too. I would rather live with a little noise, maybe an imperfect track, but rather than gut the dialogue to the point where it doesn't sound like a human anymore. I mean, that happens too. People can process dialogue now with these tools, so it would cut out everything.
Right. Okay,
and it sounds very sterile and unsatisfying and unbelievable and robotic even.
Okay.
So again, it's just like a chef making a recipe that has a point of view that will tailor it enough so that you can hear things, but it's not annoying. Now, the whole idea of at home, you got to hand it to the production mixers too. We're out there with a boom or lavalier mics, and they're stuck now with very little time to ask for retakes. If they want to retake because of sound, a lot of times, nope, sorry, we're moving on. And you're stuck with this noisy production track or a jet going overhead or, a million things. And sound has struggled many times to find its place and equal the focus of the picture and the cinematography, which is, making the picture look incredible, but you can't get a microphone in, and so constantly striving with our tools. The dialogue mixer's job is the hardest, and you could sit there for hours slogging over things, trying to clean it up, and it still doesn't sound great, and it's very challenging from the standpoint of. But now also, again, just to step aside, we do have tools that can eliminate background noise and preserve the voice. Those things have to be used very carefully and require a great editorial team or a mixer who can do editing and mixing. And you can work that stuff out as long as it's not too much and sound gated or pumping or unrealistic. So you've got to find that balance.
Where does AI fit into this? I'm sure you're talking about that as some of the tools that are eliminating background noise and processing, vocals and stuff like that. Are you using a lot of tools like that now?
Well, the tools that involve AI are definitely coming into play. As a matter of fact, you probably know about all the discussions about the contracts and AI wording and people being very cautious about embracing AI, but there's many uses. Let me give you an example. The tools I was talking about noise reduction aren't necessarily AI based.
Okay.
Isotope RX is an example. There's several others that can help with noise. I've watched Dialogue Editor remove sirens, which is a moving pitch thing, by just painting it out. The dialogue goes into this screen, and then all the sound is transferred into colors.
Whoa.
And they can find it, paint it out, just like color, right? When you have color timing, you can change everything in the background. It's getting that way with sound. It's just different frequencies, sound. And so those tools are fairly prominent and getting better all the time. The AI side of things can be tricky because there's AI tools that can take, let's say, recently I had to do a Donald Duck short with the director Mark Henn, who was one of the original Disney animators who just retired, Disney legend, right? And he brought Donald Duck back for a quick short that's on Disney Plus called DIY Duck. And we used the original Donald Duck voice, but
wow.
The original Donald Duck voice was married to all these optical tracks that had music and effects, married together. They didn't have stems, what we call stems, dialogue, music, and effects. So we used some tools to extract the dialogue from it, and therefore we're able to then recreate everything else around it and work with the film. You can use AI to separate dialogue, music, and effects from composite tracks and create stems for music. They're talking now about AI that can do foreign language. Like you could have a movie starring an actor, let's use Tom Hanks as an example, if he's the main character, and then you could technically, with all the right permissions, and there's a lot, you can't just do it. Right. But technically, you could take the voice and you can make him speak in German, you can make him speak in Italian or any other language. And part of that is interesting because I do I handle the supervision of the foreign language dubbing for all of our films at Disney Animation. So there's 45 to 50 languages that I spend a month supervising when our movie's done. And people are asking, well, how come you don't just do AI for your characters, you know? And number one, to get, for an example of a very famous actor, now it's going to be in 46 territories. The cost of getting permission and the cost of spending the money on them, because they're not going to do it for free, but also the territories have star talent they want on the poster. So they will dub it in the language, and it's going to be their star talent from Broadway or whatever that can sing and act. And so at this point, I don't really see it as, I mean, I see it as a tool that might help with things like efforts, or if you can't get the actor for ADR and you get permission, you could sample the voice and do it. And, you know, I don't really know where it's headed, but I know there's guardrails that people are trying to put in place so that, you know, we don't have a situation where people like myself or production people or, you know, other crafts are suddenly being completely replaced by the technology, and we've seen that happen. I mean, in 40 years, I've seen the technology grow faster than you can believe it. When, as an example, in the late 80s and early 90s, that's when digital workstations started coming in. And Frank, when you and I were mixing, we were mixing to analog Dolby A to 24-track tape. Everything was on tape. And workstations started coming in where you could record digitally, you could play back digitally, but very primitive compared to what we have now. But this was the stepping stones. Some of them were successful, some of them weren't. And there were folks that did not embrace the technology, that were, you know, strictly analog, cutting on film or splicing audio tape, that did not want to learn the new technology, and there was a culling that happened. And so for me, I had to embrace all these new technologies as they came up while working. And that was a real challenge for me, because I didn't have the ability to sit in my own room and really learn what the big tool right now is Pro Tools, which is, you know, the digital audio workstation that is prevalent throughout the world in post-production. And it handles the dialogue, music, and effects, mixing and editing and recording tools for music and for sound for picture. There are several others, but that's the main one. Learning that on the job was either do or die. If I didn't learn it, I would have been out of work 20 years ago.
So
let's, I think something's happening with AI.
Let's get into weeds now and talk. Yeah. Let's talk about real people and real events. So I remember in 1987 or something.
Wow, that's so long ago.
You were mixing you were mixing a show with Diana Ross, and you told me that she was sitting in the back, and you were under instructions not to talk to her, and if you had to address her, you had to address her as Miss Ross. Oh so God. What are some of the more difficult people you've worked with, and some of the better people you worked with? And use names.
Well, this guy Frank Pace, man.
Let's go.
In the Murphy Brown shows, it'd be like the lip would just crack, and it'd be like, oh, I was shaking and I was nervous, and no, I'm kidding. We had a real symbiotic. Well, it was awesome what we were doing. Yeah, it was great. I mean, because we had a successful show. I mean, success has many friends, and failure is an orphan, right? So. But yeah, I mean, when I was doing, you know, I came out of music school in 1980. I was like 5, I think. No, I was 20, 22, 21. And, you know, I found myself doing all these big music shows eventually by the mid 80s. I was working with Motown with Berry Gordy and his team. And, you know, a boy from the suburbs in New York, I didn't really know much about Motown music. Found myself working with Michael Jackson, and we did a show called Motown on Showtime with Diana Ross, was also the host of, I think she did Solid Gold. And what I found a lot of times is that it's the people around the handlers that are more problem than the actual person. To give you an example, I mean, she was great, and she just wanted people to do their job. And when people are professionals, and Barbara Streisand was that way. She could be very, very difficult if you gave her an inkling that you didn't know what you were doing, or you were nervous, or you were just not confident. I mean, what we do as mixers, yes, we have to know all this technical stuff, but I'd say a good 80% of what we do is making people feel comfortable. We're psychologists, we're electricians, we're babysitters sometimes. When I was working with Gary Shandling and Martin Mull and Rodney Dangerfield, I mean, Rodney was difficult. He didn't treat the folks around him all that well, his daughter and
really,
and quite, but I picked up a lot of his,
Matters.
his humor, so there were people that just were unhappy or something, and you'd feel bad for the people around them that would just get beat up all the time. And when I worked with Billy Friedkin, he had this, could be difficult, could be challenging, but we won an Emmy together on a show that we did. Back at Tadeo, and I was on my game.
Sorry, when you say difficult, Billy Friedkin. Sorry to interrupt you. What do you mean by that? Like,
all due respect, because he's no longer
right. Got it. Never
but I feel like what would happen is, and people didn't warn me, but you can't give them sugar, okay? And I didn't know this. So in the morning, I'd be mixing. There was no sound, very few sound effects, no music. It was a remake of 12 Angry Men. All dialogue. And the post supervisor wanted to do this mix in like 4 days. And 3 weeks into it, we were still doing it. And I just always said, buyer beware. Billy is not going to, we're going to detail every single syllable of every single word. And if you were to say, oh, this mic's off, this line is off mic, the boom guy missed it, and the boom is over there, and so it sounds, he could potentially fire you or yell at you or be really mad because you don't take ownership of the track.
Let me stop. You said you don't give him sugar. What do you mean by that? You mean,
no, not.
I mean, sweet talk, or actual sweets.
Okay, no, I'm talking about. We would have a morning mix, and it would be going great. Okay. And then right after lunch, he would have donuts or sweets crash, and then everything he did in the morning he'd hate.
Right. Interesting.
And it was this blood sugar thing that I didn't know anything about, and everybody in the hallway was laughing because everybody knew it, and it's just trial by fire. There was a time back then where there was this bully mentality with being on the dub stage, where people wouldn't allow, some direct mixers wouldn't allow sound editors on the stage. Right. When I was coming up, you never had a sound editor on the stage. They were just not allowed. And, there was all of this hierarchy that has fortunately gone away now, to the point where, this fear, this testing used to happen all the time. The thing is, I didn't like that. I didn't find that it would have been, if I'd have stayed on that path on big movies, which I started to do, maybe I would have done more huge live action films. But at that time, I didn't like the culture that a lot of them had. So, but coming back to John Lee Hancock, he was just and I still do his movies to this day. He does a movie every 2 years, and I'm doing it. And it's such a gentle, collaborative, rewarding environment. And so I find myself wanting to do work that way. And I've got a position now where I don't have to put up with that.
Right.
And I really didn't do well personally with that bully mentality on the stage, and I just didn't go that direction with a lot of these directors. I had an experience with Angelica Houston, where she's a legend, right? the whole thing was just, now she's directing 2 movies, and I got elected, and she liked me, so she came in, and what an amazing woman, a talented, smart, collaborative, fun, and we were working on one of her films, and I had to take a break, and we had another film coming in on a Monday, and we worked on Saturday, and she had to do the Oscars on Sunday night as a presenter, and she said, let me know how I do, she was all nervous and everything, so okay. So Monday I'm with this other client, and this other client did not want to be there. They were forced to come to Tadeo. They wanted to be somewhere else. They didn't know me. It was just it's the kind of thing where everything you do is wrong. Nothing will please people. And we're in the service business. That's the other thing about being a mixer. You can't take this stuff personally. You have to just do the best you can and have a thick skin, or this stuff will eat you up. And they were just miserable and just unhappy with everything. And there's a knock on the door on the stage, and I get up, and it's Angelica, who happened to be doing some ADR across the hall. And she walks in, and everybody's jaw dropped. She just gives me a big hug. How was I last night? And did I do okay? And everybody was just, and I said, you were absolutely stunning. It was beautiful, and you did a great job at presenting at the Oscars. And she said, I'll see you tomorrow, and just wanted to say hi and waved to everybody and left. And after that, the session went extremely well. It's just the hypocrisy of that. And I just never was drawn to the heavy duty. There's a lot of famous directors who came from that, who did big movies, and I just got drawn to a different environment, which brings me to how I ended up in animation, because I had done a couple of animated features, bigger ones, through Paramount at Tadeo, and I got the attention of Disney. And like I mentioned, when I got over there in 2004, they asked me if I would mix the next movie. And at that time, Terry Porter was the animation king, mixer. He'd done everything from Lion King and Little Mermaid, all the big, movies back in the day, and was brilliant. And he was mixing at Disney also, and this was his client. But he had to go off and do Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, which he ended up getting an Oscar nomination for, and gave me the blessing to work with his client. And we've been together ever since, because my colleague and the head of post, Bernice Robinson, who hired me full-time then to be at Disney Animation, gives me the opportunity to build, design, and we've got our own stages. I work with the sound people and the music people. We do music-based films, musicals. I'm in my element, and I have no plan to really stop, because I just love it, and it's come full circle for me. Wow. So yeah, there's been some challenges back in the day, and I would get very nervous when I had to work with big directors and big people, and like I say, working with the Motown people and trying to think of, but they were very. It was challenging, but it wasn't bully, It was Smokey Robinson. It was his show, and the Tops and the Temps and Marvin Gaye and Michael Jackson and all of these people that the handlers were always more difficult than the people were.
What was Michael Jackson like?
Well, I only had him once in the booth, but I did a lot of his shows. We did the Thriller video. We did, I did We Are the World.
You did We Are the World?
The post.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, funny story about that. We use time code now, which is a track that keeps everything in sync. It's just numbers, keeps all your units in sync with the picture. Back then, music folks didn't really have that in the record world. And so every single music video that we would do, Crosby, Stills, Nash, Sting, all of these shows, all of these music videos were just what we call wild tape playing, and I would have to manually sync it back up to the picture by hand with a device, and control it all the way through. And we had We Are the World coming in, which had a 20-minute version, 10-minute version, an 8-minute version, 6 and a 3 and a 2. There were like 6 versions we were going to do on a Saturday, but they were bringing time code. So heck, it should just lock up. And now it's the master tape, so we're replacing it with the best possible audio onto the picture, the best it can be, so it can be delivered. And I got the tapes, and I look at it, and it's got what we call leader spliced onto it, so it's nice and clean, and then the music would start, except they spliced it right up against the time code. So there was no lead in. You couldn't sync it up.
Whoa.
So 2 days of manually syncing 20 minutes of music for We Are the World was.
David, let me ask you, when you said before, and obviously when you know your job, let the horses run the race, right? Give you the reins, let them go. Or with your experience with MTV and all those, Motown and everything else, are they more likely to be micromanaging the rock bands, and do they have the final words and say, look?
Well, it was always very challenging because their world was not sound for picture. Their world was records. And there's always been, and still to this day, when I work on musicals in films, there's folks that come from the music world that are not familiar with how we work in picture. So I had to be very strong in terms of the workflow I needed. And that could sometimes be heavily micromanaged, and a lot of trust had to be built up. Like, for instance, when I did the Goonies video for Cyndi Lauper, this is a woman who has got ears like I've never seen. Amazing. She can hear super high up, but she's also super creative. We did the Goonies video, and I took the highest possible, but she's from New York, we got along, but we took the highest possible quality tape, and it was unacceptable to her because she could hear noise on it. And so we had to we had to use the technology to invent new ways to do everything live for her video. So we weren't re-recording it. We were just playing everything live and then recording it to the master, which had not been done before. But that was a real collaboration. And there's other folks that came in that just didn't understand the workflow, and I had a couple people, leave because we weren't doing things the way they wanted to do it. But after initial success, I was very grateful and lucky early on to get some success. Not that awards mean anything, but it did in some circles. Very early on, I started getting recognition for my work in music and sound for picture. So it drew the people in that, we had to build trust. But it was very hard on me because I'm a warrior, and I had to put on a strong face, and it did. Obviously, got the work done. One interesting story with the music folks, and we were talking about people, right, and how they can be challenging. We did a Joni Mitchell special, and I was the assistant on the stage for I wasn't mixing. It was before I started mixing, and Jerry Clemens was the re-recording mixer, and Joni and her whole team came in to do this Shadows and Light special that was going to be simulcast, and we were making the simulcast tape that was going to play with the picture. It was a big deal. Hadn't been done much like this before in mid-'80s, early 80s. And so Joni Mitchell was a hero of mine from way back. And everyone was like, don't talk to her, don't look her in the eye, don't do all this stuff. And it was all BS. She sat with me and asked me to go get her pecan pie, which was her favorite thing. She'd go in the booth and smoke Marlboros, and then this dulcet tones would come pouring out. Amazing experience, and quite different from what it was built up to be. And the mixer, Jerry, was doing all the high-profile music shows at the time, and I was mentoring under him. It got to be 11 o'clock at night. He turns to me and goes, we're doing a sitcom. God, Frank, there was a diner show about a diner back then. I can't remember the name of it.
Alice?
Alice.
Damn.
He was mixing that. And so he said, they're coming in at 9. We have to finish this on Tuesday. So you have to do me a favor and write everything down so we can set this up again. Now, this was hundreds and hundreds of patch cords, outboard gear, no automation, and he just leaves. And I got really mad because I'm like, I have to write down everything. And it took me till 8 a.m. to write down every single channel that he had, what all the settings were, what all the patches were. It was all manual stuff back in the day. All the equipment hooked up, reverbs and settings and EQs and all these things and the recorders. And, it was a stack of paper like this at the end. Comes in the morning. We set up to do Alice. Craig Porter, the laugh person, came in and we did the show. And after we're done, he goes, "So how was last night?" And I gave him a stack of paper. I said, "Joni's coming back in at 4, whatever. Let's set this up." And he said, "So how'd it go?" I said, I was trying not to be, it was kind of brutal that he would ask me to do that. But I didn't say anything. I just said it was okay. I was exhausted. He goes, "So you probably know the console pretty well now, right?" And the gear. I said, "Oh, I know every single, yes." It was great because there's a documentary series next week that I can't mix. So congratulations, you're mixing.
Wow.
Oh, that was baptism under fire. Huh?
That's great.
Yeah.
Before we go, I want to ask.
Not the way I would do it. But.
Billy, you have anything final to ask David?
No, one quick question. I noticed that your degree was in electronic mixing, music composition. You started out playing guitar or piano, or what got interested in music to begin with? What was it?
I'll be brief, but back in grade school, I started writing music on a little Magnus organ. And I started in drums and percussion back in the day. And when I got into high school in Long Island, Floral Park, Long Island, had a music department that somehow created people that went from there and had a tremendous music. This is just a public high school, in Long Island. It wasn't a music school or anything, but people came out of there and went on and did amazing things, surrounded by all this talent. So I was encouraged at a very early age, and when I got in there in 7th, 8th grade, and I was writing music for the groups, and they encouraged me to do that. So to the point where I was doing writing band compositions and arranging music, and they allowed me to independently study. I took some lessons through Manhattan School of Music. I was studying electronic music and 20th century kind of very esoteric stuff. I wasn't really into pop music. And I was preparing a portfolio. Leonard Bernstein took a look at my portfolio to help me get it together for college. I got into music school, Crane School of Music in upstate New York, and discovered electronic music. Through that, I discovered recording. They had recording studios. I was recording all my friends, and I got very nervous because now I'm doing this technical thing with consoles and keyboards, and I'm getting away from music. And then I realized I'm using my musical ability. I played piano. I played tuba, actually. Was a tubist, brass player, and a bunch of other instruments that I learned, but I learned how to write for all of them and was given the opportunity to do that and through college as well. And surrounded with people that really were nurturing and encouraging, to the point where my new instrument, the way I look at what I do is, as a composer, as a conductor conducts an orchestra, that's what a mixer is doing. We're using this console as just a tool to make things louder or softer, brighter, fill the space or not. We're interpreting music. If you gave 5 conductors Beethoven's Fifth, it'd be the same music, but it might have slightly different tempo, it might have a slightly different emphasis, there'd be an interpretation of the music. That's what I'm doing as a mixer. I'm interpreting the sound for the story, and determining how much goes in. And so for me, it was a full circle realization that I'm able to use my musical knowledge, and I use it every day with timing, with musicality, with pitch, with all of these things. And I stopped performing, realizing I probably wasn't going to make a living as a composer, but I'm using this new tool. And that's what I do. I give lecture demonstrations all over the world to students, to my son just graduated from LMU in sound, and I would, I'm giving, again, following Carol Pratt's let's give back to the community idea of doing lecture demonstrations about sound for picture and sound and how sound helps storytelling. And so for me, it finally came full circle. And when I can sit people down on a stage and play stuff for them and make them really aware, and we're also mastering for the medium, Derek, to get to your point of raising and lowering, we master for streaming or for television so that people don't have to raise and lower the volume. We make a special master that works within a spec and a range. So these are all things.
God bless you.
That we do. Well, we try. Well,
you've become a master for sure. Thank you so much, David. It's been
a real pleasure, and thank you so much. And I'm going to be watching all the stuff you guys do. It's great.
Great.
It's really fun.
Thank you, David.
Thank you so much.
Nice
really nice to meet y'all.
Pleasure.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Great guest.
Yeah, terrific, man. I, who knew? I mean, but
well, who knew? He knew.
Yeah. I was. Yeah. He knew.
I sort of knew.
You kind of knew.
But
I was interested when he was talking about the Motown thing. Who was hands on, who wasn't hands on, and I would like to touch more on that. But fascinating guy. He really. I mean, obviously.
Good guy. It was a nice. It was a good podcast.
It was a good podcast. It was. 'Twas indeed.
'Twas indeed.
'Twas indeed.
Well, with that, why don't we get out of here?
Yeah, we don't have a lot of time, ladies and gentlemen. We got to go.
Got rivers to swim, mountains to climb,
We got to get the
continents to conquer.
Yeah.
Are you on camera yet?
Yeah. Now I'm on camera.
Oh, shit.
We got to get the fuck out of here.
we gotta fucking go, man.
All right. I'm not as interested in going as Derek might be, but okay, then we'll
we're like 5 minutes away from the next show.
Oh, we gotta go. We gotta go. We gotta go.
All right, we'll go. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for looking in.
We'll see you next week.